Being a single mom and doing it all by yourself is brutal. Learn the brain and energy tools to get back to your center and overcome your challenges. This episode has a little bit of background static noise in the first part of it, but I didn't want to record it again because I felt that I was so connected to the infinite field when I recorded it that I didn't want to change any word or the order of what came through for me to say. So I hope you forgive me and enjoy what the universe wanted me to tell you. Welcome to Single Moms Doing It All, the podcast. This is your host, Muriel Felous. And today we are going to talk about your challenges with your teen smoking weed, although maybe there are several, I don't know, and drinking and acting out in ways that are potentially dangerous and with which you don't agree. So before we do that, I wanted to let you know a little bit about where this came from. Lately in my coaching, I have moms who are facing situations like that. And although I will never pretend to have all the answers, but what I'm always trying to do is to provide you with the help that I wish I had received when I was going through that. And frankly, it's still a topic of relevance in my family because it's not only about your limits and what you're ready to accept, what are the rules in your house, what consequences are you going to implement, but it's a lot to do with how you go through that on an emotional level and on a personal level. Are you spiraling down into fear, powerlessness, confusion, and any other negative emotions that it could generate for you? Or are you nurturing yourself and providing yourself with the tools that can help you build resilience and tap into the support of the universe, your inner wisdom, and everything that is really available to us 24/7 that we're not told to get access to in our society. So that's where it came from the experiences of moms that I'm currently coaching and my own experience. Before we go through that, I want to let you know that you can always comment on the episodes, because if you go to the podcast page on my website, there is a space where you can comment, ask questions, or you can always contact me more privately, because this is a sensitive matter and a lot of moms are carrying shame. And that's something that I'm not approaching in this episode, but I will do an episode on shame, of feeling like a failure, feeling that you messed your kid up, etc., because that's something also that is very familiar to me that I went through. So we'll talk about that too, or anything else that you would like me to talk about. I'm here for you, here in this podcast and anywhere on social media to help you and support you. So today our topic, smoking weed. How do you stand? Where do you stand on that matter? Not only for your kids, but for yourself in general about smoking weed. I mean, for me, I don't have a taboo for people who smoke weed. I don't do it personally myself because I don't like anything to alter my mind, although I sometimes have a cup of wine or a cocktail occasionally, and it does alter your mind. But in general, I don't like to feel dependent on something, to feel certain emotions or certain sensations in my body. I believe that the brain is an amazing machine, And if we know how to train it well, it can work for us effortlessly. And it includes feeling relaxed, feeling joyful, feeling at ease with people. It's all a question of training for me. Now, I don't judge people who do it, but where I see an opportunity for caution is people who depend on that on a regular basis to navigate life and deal with situations where they want to avoid feeling. When it is about that, then there is an issue. And even if weed is not per se addictive, as all the research says, the feeling, the emotional state, the feeling relaxed and high can become addictive. You can become addicted to wanting that feeling to feel better with what's going on in your life. So pay attention to that. Like anything else, why are you doing it? What's your intention? What's your purpose behind it? And are you conscious, or are you trying to avoid and try to become somehow unconscious to what's going on? So that's what directs my philosophy on that. So it is important for you to know where you stand, because unless you're solid in your convictions, you cannot help your teen. Unless you're solid on what you believe in, you cannot help anybody else. You may actually create more damage than anything, because you may waver between one extreme to another. That can be felt. The same way that when you go to a job interview or a business meeting, you need to be owning who you are, being in your power, being in your body, know your worth, be solid in yourself. And of course, there is no perfection, because we can change our mind, and we're going to talk about that. But know where you are on that matter. And relating to your kids, what are your limits? What are you ready to accept? Are you ready to accept that your teens may have experienced with weed and may experience still with weed when they go to a party or a friend or whatever? What are your limits? What are you ready to tolerate in your house? I know some moms that, regarding alcohol, for example, same thing. What's your philosophy about alcohol? As you know, my ex-husband has an addiction, so for me, it's a very sensitive subject in my house, because I've seen the damages and still see them. What do you think about having a drink? I know in France, we are more liberal than here regarding drinking, maybe. But you know what? We are more liberal in the approach. But what I notice is, here in the US, I see a lot of people who try to self-medicate with alcohol, where it's less present in France, because there is not such an attraction to it. It's more like let's say you have a good dinner. It's more like a pleasure-oriented activity, not so much a solution to anything. And of course, I'm talking in general, right? There are alcoholics in France. There are plenty, like anywhere else. But the approach, like growing up in a country where when there was a birthday, we were allowed, maybe since we were 13, 14, to have a sip of champagne. Of course, my parents didn't let me drink alcohol whenever I wanted, however I wanted. But when there were special occasions like birthdays, weddings, any other celebrations, we were allowed to have a little bit of alcohol, just to toast. And because of that, the attraction wasn't as strong, because it wasn't such a taboo. It wasn't such the thing to do when you're a rebellious teen. So that's the difference that I see with that here in the US, where it is such a taboo that sometimes the negative side, there is a positive side for it to be a taboo, that you cannot go to a store and buy it yourself like it is in Europe. But there is also a negative side, which is the attraction of the forbidden. So where do you stand in your own house regarding those substances? You need to be very clear, and you need to be able to look at that without judging yourself. Look at that without the imposed views of wherever you are living, uh, the what society had tried to impose on you, uh, in a non-judgmental way. I noticed that while coaching people for years now and coaching myself, that anything that we can't look at without judgment, we're not going to change because we won't even go and look. It's too painful. There is too much shame attached to it. That's why I even created, like in my membership, I created a visualization, a meditation called Your Inner Sanctuary, which I wanted to create for people their own sacred space, their own sacred place, their own sacred sanctuary, where they could sit surrounded by whomever they want and whoever they believe in. Some people believe that they have guides. Some people believe in their ancestors. Some people believe in angels. Whatever it is that you believe in that makes you feel safe and supported, you can bring them into that sanctuary, and you can look together while they hold your hand on an energy level at your shit. And pardon my French, I think I'm going to have to mark this episode with explicit language. It came out without me thinking. It's not usually a term that I employ, but I trust that if I said that in this episode, somebody needs to hear it in that way, in that format. So find a way to look at your stuff without judgment. If you have to sit with a journal and start journaling, do that. Journaling is very, very powerful, and I find for myself and others over and over and over in my coaching sessions one-on-one, in my group sessions, that when you start writing, and especially when you start writing with a prompt sentence, information is coming on paper that you didn't know you had in you, that you didn't know was relevant, that you didn't know you believed in. So that's very, very powerful. Where do you stand? Now, we talked about your limits. Let's say maybe you let your teenager have a little bit of champagne or not. What are you ready to do if they cross the limit? And when I'm talking about that, it needs to be something that you need to reflect on, because you may say, a lot of people say, okay, I will take the phone, I will punish them for 2 months, I will send them away in boarding school. And again, no judgment here, especially if you consult your inner wisdom and your higher guidance, that may be the solution. But be careful that you feel okay with that internally. Be careful that you're not going to feel guilty after a month of having sent your teen away, and that you're going to reverse the process. Be careful that you're not going to punish them, and because you feel so bad that their friends are asking them to participate in events or activities or just to hang out, and you said she was punished or he was punished, that you won't break your word. That is super important. And internally, be careful that you feel okay with the decision. That means it may not be butterflies and roses. Like if you decide to send your teen in an institution or in a school somewhere where they will have stricter boundaries, where they will have somebody watching them 24/7, especially when you're a single mom, you cannot watch them all the time, you work and all that, where they will learn to live with discipline or maybe more structure. Be careful that you feel okay, that it's not going to be pleasurable, it's going to be sad for both of you on both sides, but you know, ultimately in your heart of heart, you know that it's the best solution, that sometimes tough love is necessary. Before you do and start and announce anything to anyone, go within. Be solid. Be clear. And that's where I help moms a lot. It is on clarity. and on feeling that they have the answers, that they are smart enough, that they are wise enough, that they are strong enough. Because sometimes you need somebody to hold your hand, create a sacred space, and give you some tools. So that's where I intervene. That's where I'm like a facilitator. You do your own healing. You can do it alone if you are someone who can do that alone. You can do it with me. You can do it with someone else. There are many ways. But go within and consult yourself. And once you have, and let me come back. If we're talking about universal guidance and inner wisdom, before you go and consult yourself, make sure you are in a neutral state of mind, neutral emotional state. I have in the Facebook group some tapping session, emotional freedom technique sessions on various topics. You can always send me messages if you need help on something. I can do a short session in the Facebook group. I have them, of course, in more depth in my membership. We do them live with having the opportunity to be directly coached in my membership too, because we have at least one live session monthly where people can ask their questions and we can work on their issue. Make sure you grab the tools to be at a neutral emotional state. If you can be positive, that's even better, but sometimes it's too hard. I know, I lived there. I went through all that. Sometimes neutral is good enough. Instead of depressed, powerless, confused, scared, guilty, shameful, etc., and even sometimes depressed, like it ended up being with me. Sometimes neutral is enough. Make sure you are in a neutral emotional state before you connect to your guidance. Before you go in that meditative state, or before you start writing to see what's going to come on paper. You never want to consult that when you're in fear, when you're angry, when you're scared. Because all you're going to do, you remember, there is an energy elevator. You know, I don't really express things in the matter of attraction. I talk more about alignment. And it's like an energy elevator. If you stop at the level, at the floor of fear, what are you going to encounter? Answers that will resonate with fear. And that's never the highest vibrational answer. That's never aligned with the highest good. So be at least at a floor of feeling centered, feeling maybe peaceful, feeling even better, powerful and connected. And then you get your answer. That's what I wanted to add about universal guidance and universal support before I go further. So now that we've said all that the foundations are here, I wanted to give a few warnings for things that you need to keep in mind. Let's say that you have a teen that's acting out in drinking or smoking or whatever. Make sure you guard your connection, your love connection, your positive connection, the connection that was there before they turned acting out teenagers. Still, make sure you demonstrate love to them. And I've done an episode on love languages. You can find it in my podcast. I may go more in depth in the future. If that's something you would like me to do, let me know. Put a comment below this episode or reach out to me on Facebook. By the way, the Facebook group is called Single and Doing It All. And my Facebook page is called Your French Life Coach. And you can find that on my website, Single Moms Doing It All. I want to make sure you have all the contacts because I know there are new people listening to me and I want to be there for them too. So make sure you demonstrate love to them in a way that is fully received. And give them approval for other areas because their life is not only the smoking. Their life is how they perform in doing things, who they are as human beings. I know my kids are good human beings. I see them demonstrate compassion. Then give them approval and appreciation and acknowledgement of all those great things that they are. even more than the things that they do, the things that they are, so that it brings them back to the good side of their identity, the truth of who they are. And maybe they lost the connection because maybe they're trying to smoke to avoid feeling. I know it was the case for one of my kids. So what can you approve of and where can you appreciate? Where can you reinforce the good? Let me give you an example. My middle one, Ariel, she's better than all of us combined at putting the minimum effort for the maximum results. I know I am a double Capricorn and I'm about work, and somehow I'm still working with the belief that you have to work hard to get results. She surpasses me, like she's way above me on that matter. She knows how to invest the least to get the most. So I tell her that, and I also tell her that she's the only one in the family that has that, because I want her to know her strength too. And that can be employed for good, and that can be employed for bad. But I won't even go there when I talk to her about that. I don't want her to feel judged. I just want her to feel appreciated. Warning number 2. Make sure that you spend quality time with them that is not the result of a reward for good behavior. Like, you know how they accumulate, maybe in your family you have a system of reward accumulation based on good behavior, on doing what you're supposed to do, on being respectful. That's great. But also, make sure that you spend just quality and fun times for no reason. Just because. Just because you love them, and tell them so. If they say why, what's the occasion? Just because I love you. Even if they misbehave and they drive you nuts, you need to guard, that's friendship, Franglish, garder. You need to keep that connection with them. You need to cultivate that. Cultivate love in all forms and ways. Third warning, leave room for change. And that more pertains to yourself internally. Let's say you decided on an approach and you see that the approach that you thought was going to work is not producing the expected result. Give yourself permission to change your approach. It doesn't mean that you're inconsistent. It doesn't mean that you're not smart. It's just like in business. You try something, it doesn't work, change the approach, try something else, until you get to the root of the problem and it gets resolved. So do, as a parent, give yourself permission internally, leave room for change, and tell your kid, because they may be surprised also if you changed your direction. They may be surprised and they may take, I know with my teens, when I wanted to be strong and I needed to enforce something, if I was too soft or if I changed my approach, they took it as weakness. So make sure that you explain to them that that's what we're going to do, that's the road we're going to travel on right now, and what your goal is, not that specific approach, not that specific goal, but their highest good, for them to be healthy, sober, not codependent on anything, and loved, and feel good about themselves. So that's the target goal. And tell them that right now it's the approach. If you ever need to change the approach, you go and you can explain to them, look, this obviously doesn't work, so we're going to try. We're going to do that now. Maybe don't say try. I don't know, it depends. This try is a word that I don't like. And for the little anecdote, my kids got so mad at me back several years ago because they were saying try. And I was already telling them, like in Star Wars, like Master Yoda, there is no try, because by the time that you try, you're already doing it. And they could never understand that approach. They don't resonate with it. Until today, they battle me on that. And for me, try doesn't even exist. If I try to pick up something, I'm already doing the action. So, but that's just for the anecdote. Maybe you don't have a problem with the word try like I do. So let them know that you're going to change the approach when it's time and you're going to try something else, and don't feel bad about it and don't feel weak. And you need to find a way to express that to them in a way that you don't come across as weak, because they can smell weakness and they will take advantage of that. Warning number 4. I got messed up here in my numbering because I have 3, but we already did 3. Number 4. Use energy. I know we're not told, we're not raised like that, but this is available to us, and it's immensely powerful and efficient. Work with energy. Send them love. Protect them with your energy. In the Facebook group that I mentioned, I have a live session that I did, I don't know, 6 months ago. I don't know exactly when, but you can find it there. To help your teen with energy when they refuse your help physically. Use that. I've seen results. I'm still seeing results, not only on my teens, but at work, everywhere I go. When I go, for example, to return something, I send energy before I go there to fall on the right person. You know how some people can be very helpful and others are very closed and they don't want to help and they don't want to solve your problem. I send good energy before. Do the same thing before you're going to have an interaction with your son or your daughter. Protect them also. I did that with one of mine who was acting in a way that could have killed my kid, because they are very impulsive and they have no judgment at a certain age, when they're teen and even when they're older teen. So use energy. And something that I just repeated yesterday to one of my clients, build a vision that is greater than your fear. Build a vision of how do you want to see your kid. So we worked on seeing the kid, and that's something that I'm putting now in my membership, to have a vision, because some people, they have a hard time with it, to have a greater vision, to even in the future see your kid as you want to see them. What do you want to see? What moment would you like to live with them? Something that is really triggering the joy and the gratitude. And if it's too hard for you to see the future, or if there is a belief that is blocking you, saying, I have no impact on what they're going to do in the future, start today. How would you like to see them when they open the door and come in the house? I suspect you would like to see them sober and or not high and happy when they open the door, the same way that you remember them before they started acting out. So what's your ideal vision, if you prefer, for today, if you don't want to go into the future? And last, number 4. Oh, actually, no, number 5, because I made a mistake before. How do you take care of yourself? What do you do to take care of yourself in these moments of challenge? And the last point, the last warning I wanted to mention today, number 5, take care of yourself and put particular attention on forgiving yourself. Forgiving yourself for not having all the answers. Forgiving yourself for the setbacks. Really be gentle and compassionate with yourself and do everything you can to become more and more resilient, because you're going to need it. I would like to share an affirmation you can tell yourself: even though I am still figuring this out, I love and accept myself with my wisdom and with my mistakes. And another side is, keep in mind that this may not be resolved in one day, and there may be ups and downs. So expect to have what it takes, and accept if there are up and downs. Cultivate your strength. And to conclude, I have an affirmation that I use myself and that I tell the moms I work with. And it is, I have what it takes. Because when you know that you have what it takes, it opens you on a brain level to figure out a solution, because you know you can. And on an energy level, it puts you at the vibration where you can manage what's going on, even if it's not easy. I'm not saying that it's easier, although it's easier in a way, because there is a part of stress that is going down when you know you have what it takes. The fear is not as large. So that's what I wanted to tell you today. Those two affirmations that are like secret weapons. The first one is, even though I am still figuring this out, I love and accept myself with my wisdom and with my mistakes. And the other one is, I have what it takes. So on these beautiful words, I know you do have what it takes, and I trust that you will step into your power, your real power. I'll see you next week with another episode and another topic.